SABC why it did not arrest Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir when he attended the African Union Summit in Sandton in June earlier this year. As a signatory to the Rome Statute, Pretoria fell foul of its own courts when it failed to carry out a warrant of arrest to see al-Bashir detained. He's been wanted for charges of crimes against humanity since 2009. Well, International Relations and Cooperations Minister Maite Mohlaoli is expected to address the Parliament later today. Her office has confirmed to the SABC that after her address, the minister will speak to the media about the ICC matter. So for more on this, we're joined on the line by our reporter Tumaole Mohlaoli. Tumaole, thanks for joining us. First of all, what can we expect from the Pan-African Parliament today?
Well, just as we speak, Minister Mohlaoli, the International Relations Minister of South Africa, has arrived at the Pan-African Parliament, and right now the Pan-African Parliament session is standing at attention as the Pan-African Parliament anthem is being played. Now, what we can expect, we are told by officials here, is that after Minister Mohlaoli, who is billed as the guest of honor, addresses the Pan-African Parliament, she will then have a press briefing whereby she will field questions about the importance of the Pan-African Parliament and where the Pan-African Parliament is at the moment. We know that high on the agenda is the issue of ratification of the lawmaking process. The Pan-African Parliament has, for the longest while, been calling for powers to make law, for legislative powers. And this is high on the agenda. And I think parliamentarians here are very, very happy to have Minister Mohlaoli, which would show strong support from South African government. The Pan-African Parliament has in the past been criticized as a toothless organization and nothing more than a talk shop. But we see that in recent times there has been a push to move the Pan-African Parliament towards being the legislative arm of the African Union.
All right, and Tumaole, of course, we are showing visuals of the al-Bashir saga, and certainly a lot of focus will be, as expected, on the ICC. And Maite Mohlaoli will be addressing the media this afternoon. What do you think some of the talking points will be around this?
Well, certainly I've been speaking to some colleagues from the media here, as well as other ambassadors. Of course, as a follow-up to the ambassadorial meeting, which happened on the eve of the Pan-African Parliament, fourth Parliament, which kicks off today. This was last week, and ambassadors were very, very clear on the issue of non-participation with the ICC. Now, these will be some of the questions that will be thrown forward to the minister in the press briefing. Now, I think some of the ambassadors here were strong in terms of trying to stress the point that as far as they're concerned, they don't understand what the furore is all about. Of course, the South African government was heavily criticized for its handling of the Omar al-Bashir saga when the president of Sudan came to the country to attend an AU summit recently, and of course the warrant of his arrest as issued by the International Criminal Court wasn't executed by South Africa. South Africa at the time said that President Omar al-Bashir was here as a guest of the African Union and not on invitation of the South African government. I think the minister will be at hand to clarify this position as to how this process was handled and what it actually means for South Africa as a signatory of the Rome Statute. Of course, South Africa, as one of the leading members of the African Union, has also an obligation to adhere to the conditions and decisions taken by the continental body, and the African Union is firm behind its stance of non-cooperation with the ICC. So we'll see exactly how the minister navigates this very technical and very fine line, which has created quite a storm around President Omar al-Bashir, the Sudanese president's presence here in South Africa.
Absolutely. And with that, today being the deadline for South Africa, is Pretoria likely to respond?
Well, all eyes will be on the minister to answer that question. That will be one of the questions put through to her. I've been trying to get some information information from some of the officials from the Department of International Relations. They're remaining very tight-lipped about that matter, except to say the matter is before the courts. And of course, South Africa is expected to respond as to why it did not execute that arrest warrant from the ICC. We'll wait to hear what the minister has to say in terms of what South Africa's response, if at all, would be. But I would suggest that with the matter before the courts, we would be expected to find some kind of response from the state. So a press conference will be held shortly after the official photo opportunity. The minister is now expected to take the podium in the next few minutes as we speak. She's sitting right on the stage and she's being introduced. And within an hour or so, we'll have that press conference. So this is one of the questions that she will be answering as to whether or not South Africa will meet the deadline to respond as to why exactly it did not execute that arrest warrant.
All right, thanks very much. That's our reporter, Tumaole Mohlaoli, live from the Pan-African Parliament in Johannesburg, and we will, of course, bring you updates from that press briefing. He's saying there that Minister Maite Nkoana is taken to the stage. She will be addressing the press in a few minutes to about half an hour, so we will, of course, bring you updates from that. We are going to take a